we as men seem to be able to rationalize our decisions when it comes to something like this. And even if it's not the completely mistaken thought that, look, life is just going to be better without me, which is just a terrible, terrible thing to say and think, because no, nobody's life is better without you. That's just the way it is. But we seem to be able to, in our own minds, rationalize things to where we can convince ourselves, and we've talked about this many times before.
Yeah.
We can convince ourselves that even bad choices are the correct choices, right?
Yeah, and it's this has become more and more obvious the more I work with men compared to women. And what I mean by that is, men very much structure and perspective, kind of what you're talking about, logic, reason, and reflection. They're very much ingredients of how we operate in the world that we operate in. And that's great if a man is in a emotionally balanced state. When they're not in an emotionally balanced state, i.e. deregulated or anxious, whatever, similar to what you said there, they kind of bend the reality of what they see to fit their own into that machine of logic, reason, and reflection. And, I'm always fascinated and curious perspective around individuals who take their own life or who have attempted to do that, to just kind of get a bit of insight really into that whole thing. It very much, in those final moments, whatever you want to call it very much does come down to logic and reflection. It's not emotionally generated thinking. It literally is very logical steps. It's really interesting from that degree to, in how men look at things. But, if anything, what you said, and I said to a lot of people, and this is no disrespect based on what we're talking about here and the other people I've worked with in the past, there's something like taking your own life is a permanent solution to temporary problems. Some of those problems may be really difficult. We talked a little bit about this before. But, it is, there is no going back when you take your own life. That's it. It is a permanent solution. And, obviously, I don't know what's been going on in the US, but it keeps coming around in the UK, this whole thing around, not necessarily about taking your own life, but how it links into euthanasia, the medical condition practice. And there's always been that fine line in the UK. Is it more towards, if the law allowed it, would be euthanasia, i.e. assisted death, or is it actually taking their own life? Does that make sense? There's so many facets within that decision-making process. What goes on after that individual has done whatever they've done. If that makes sense.